BMF. BMF. How do we like our mother effers? We like it bad!
I was not ready for that introduction, but the UFC is back in the Beehive State. Salt Lake City, Utah, the site of UFC 291. And yes, the aforementioned BMF title on the line in the main event. The highly anticipated rematch between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. We got Alex Pereira moving up to 205 pounds to take on a former champion in Jan Blachowicz. And the whole main card, as great as it looks on paper, not official just yet. We will get to that in a moment as we welcome you to the live UFC 291 preview show here at MMAfighting.com. I am Mike Heck. Joining me, my bald brethren, the wise wordsmith, the man, Shaheen Al-Shatti. What's up, Shaheen?
What's going on, Mike Heck? Oh, man, Casey got me a little more excited than usual after this. Got a rep for my man, John Anik. One more sleep. First Poirier Gaethje was in Phoenix. It was a banger fight of the year. Got to rep the Phoenix shirt for my man, John Anik.
And also joining, back from vacation, my best friend, Alexander K. Lee. Where is he? There he is. Oh, see, biggest Ultimate Fighter fan you'll ever find. And we can't hear what you're saying.
You're muted, AK.
I've got my dolls here. I'm trying to reach. They're a little bit further away. They're a little. Don't worry, guys. I might reach back and have some proper 12 or some stout in the middle of the show, but I'll keep things profesh. Don't worry about that.
You broke into Connor's house, it looks like.
We hang out. No, we were hanging out and watching Tough again. We watch it separately first. We do the show. We do Tough Hang, and then later in the week we get together and just watch it again, just for fun, like just to enjoy it.
Makes sense.
Sounds like apparently you came back to a great episode of Tough, AK.
Oh, it was fantastic.
One of the best fights in the history of the show, right?
Guys, watch this week's Tough Hang if you want to hear how enthusiastic I was about the latest episode of The Ultimate Fighter 31.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're not going to see, we are not going to see what Roosevelt Roberts and Austin Hubbard did in the main event tomorrow. We are going to see Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje get after it one more time, potentially for 25 more minutes. And AK, as we mentioned at the beginning, the whole main card is not official yet. Michelle Pereira missed weight by a whole bunch. And as of right now, the fight with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, not official. Wonderboy made weight. So we have no idea what's going on there. I think we're all under the assumption that it will happen, but Wonderboy has been in this position before. I'm sure we'll talk about this in a moment. But AK, as far as the main card goes, sometimes we're like, oh, this main event is great, but the rest of the undercard is not fantastic. This main card, if everything stays intact, it is pretty damn good. We haven't heard a gymnastics scale from you in quite some time. So what is your gymnastics scale for UFC 291? Most specifically, the main card.
First off, I'm just throwing up a little poll here. From 1 to 10, how much do you care about the BMF belt? So 10, 8 to 9, 6 to 7, and 5 or less. So let's just throw the little poll up there for the people, see how they're feeling about the BMF. Because this is a great rematch no matter what, headlining this card. And again, I don't know if the BMF aspect is adding anything to people. I mean, there's some talk about it, the winner very likely getting a title shot at some point. But overall, the card, I agree. I love the main card. The main card is great from a name value standpoint. I think the matchups on paper are excellent. I know we'll dive a bit deeper into all of them as the show goes on. So love the main card. I actually really like the prelims too. I think I mentioned it on to the next one, Mike. I know some people might be looking at some of these names and unfamiliar with some of these names. But again, as far as matchmaking goes, I think they put together the right combinations for good back and forth fights. We could see some exciting finishes. So this to me is a solid pay-per-view card in the year of our Lord 2023. I'm going to go 9.2 on paper, 9.2. Maybe that's too low. I don't know. If you are just talking about the main card, if you're just planning to sit down for the main card, you might rate it even higher. But I guess I'll ding it, not really ding it, but it would be a little bit more if there was an undisputed title on the line, something like that. But again, I always say belts are props, rankings are just numbers. From what we know of the fighters that have been scheduled for this card, it looks like there's a lot of potential for this to be memorable. So I love it. I'll go 9.2.
Shaheen, not a lot to complain about here if you're dropping $85. And there is a compelling story to every single one of these fights. And for more, I would say like 60% or higher, I have no idea what the hell's going to happen in either of these fights. Like, they're so compelling in that way. Obviously, starting from the main event, and even Kevin Holland, Michael Chiesa. I have no idea what Michael Chiesa is going to look like, and I have no idea how Kevin Holland's going to look. Is he going to be able to stop takedowns? Is he going to be able to finish a guy like Michael Chiesa? Like, there's so many different aspects to all of these fights. There's not much we can ding on this main card, right? Like, if we're spending $85, I feel like, at least on paper, we're going to get our money's worth here. Are we not?
No, absolutely. AK, I think you're probably even a little bit low on the rating there, right? Like, you look up and down all 5 of these fights. It's just tremendous. Like, it's just excitement up and down. I mean, maybe there's a chance that the co-main, Jan Blachowicz, sort of goes the Izzy route with that fight, and maybe it becomes a frustrating or boring one. But for the most part, like, all 5 of these fights are stellar. They're all sort of action packed or action oriented, we should say. And I mean, the main event, like, the blood gods love nothing more than to bathe in our tears whenever we get too hyperbolic about things like this, right? Like, every time we've ever said beforehand, oh, this is going to be fight of the year, feels like we probably curse ourselves with this. This is like the one fight that you just can't really do that with. Like, this does feel like it's going to be, if not fight of the year, it's going to be on every possible list for top 5 fight of the year if it plays out in the way that we expect. I mean, both these two gentlemen over the course of their careers have just done nothing but this, right? Like, you look at the last, I think what I looked this up, it was since 2012. So what's that? Like 11 years, really 10 years, because you haven't done the awards for 2023. Combined Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, 5 fight of the year awards from this website since 2012, including their first fight in 2018, that one fight of the year. And that's impressive. But then if you just take out one sole fact, right? Take out that 3-year run where the most exciting fighter of all time, Mr. Robbie Lawler, Bob Violence, dominated that category. Take out those 3 years. 50% of the remaining years over that span for fight of the year have featured either Dustin Poirier or Justin Gaethje in the top fight of the year spot. Basically a coin flip that these guys would be involved in the fight of the year. And if you want to go even further, just this past 6 years alone, right? Just 6-year time span, 9 combined appearances on our yearly top 5 lists for these two gentlemen. That's obscene. Like, this is as surefire of a monopoly on violence as we've seen in MMA from these two gentlemen. And this is going to deliver. Like, I feel like you can't curse it. This is going to be tremendous. And I was in the arena for that first fight and it was tremendous. And this one's going to be good too.
Yeah. And you throwing out all those stats just tells me that Dustin Poirier is vastly underrated in these conversations, because it's always like Robbie Lawler, Justin Gaethje. There's no other guy that could be on that list. And Dustin Poirier has been a part of so many bangers, from the Dan Hooker fight, from the Gaethje fight to the Hooker fight, all the way up to where we're at right now. He's just
Korean Zombie was like 2012. That one fight of the year, man. Like, he's been doing this. He does this. This is what he does.
This is what he does. And this is such an interesting matchup, Shaheen, because like you said, you were there for the first one. It was a car crash, and this was 5 years ago, over 5 years ago. So now these two are going to get after it a little bit better. Justin Gaethje still has that style, but he's more controlled now. And it was since the Dustin Poirier loss. That's when things started to turn a little bit for him. Poirier just continues to get better, continues to be more well-rounded. And both these guys are just so much better than they were 5 years ago. So if you can kind of lay out how you feel this fight's going to go, do you feel like it's going to be, like, how similar do you think it's going to be to the first one? Do you think it's going to be a little more technical? Like, I know it's almost impossible to answer, but if you could sort of imagine, if someone was like, Shaheen, bet on how this fight's going to play out, how are you going to try to put that into words?
I mean, violence is the one word that I would throw, because that's the only guarantee, right? Because I feel like both these guys, this is so intriguing to me and a lot of other people, I would imagine, because both these men find themselves in such identical circumstances, right? Both 34 years old, both very much sort of, this is like the last gasp. This is the last good run. If you're going to make a run to that undisputed title, which appears so important for both of these guys. We've even heard it this week, them talking about, BMF is cool as a legacy fight, but like, ultimately it doesn't matter if you don't win that undisputed title. Both these guys have interim on their resume, and that, I would imagine, is not good enough for either of them. They're going to try to approach this, I would say, both of them, in a way that would appear to be far more technical than the first fight. But the thing is that both of them just, AK, I know you love it, they got that dog in them. They really got that dog in them. They got many dogs in them. And all it's going to take is a little... They absolutely do, and you that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This is the one fight where you can acknowledge they got the dog in them.
You have human organs inside of them.
Have you seen the Xrays?
No, I haven't. I bet a lot of people are going to post them on Saturday night. They're going to this hilarious X-ray with a friggin' dog in there.
I could send them to you. I'll Slack them over to you. It'll be
Thanks.
good.
Yeah,
thanks,
no
worries. But it's just a thing of like, I would imagine both these guys are going to try to approach this much more technical than usual, right? Especially, Justin, we've seen this from him of sort of towing this line between chaos and technique, and sort of being not the Justin that was doing insane shit with Luis Palomino, but sort of like becoming that medium ground, right, between those two things. But the thing is, this is just so important to both of these men. Like, the result of this fight is so deeply important to both of their careers and sort of what's left, that I can imagine that the moment either one of them feels like they're down, the moment either one of them gets in trouble, all bets are out the window, and we're just going to go back to what these two dudes do best, which is just brawl the hell out of other people and just turn things into absolute mayhem. So, like, I'm sure this will be some sort of measured fight for at least a little bit at the beginning. But the moment some S goes down, like, all bets are off, and I think we're just going to see absolute chaos. And I'm so excited for it.
What do you think, AK? How do you think this? If we compare it to the first one, is this going to be like at the end of it? And I know this is a sport where immediate things happen. We're like, oh, this is the best thing we've ever seen. Are you confident that this fight is actually going to exceed the expectations that the first one gave us? Is there a chance that this one's actually better? Do you feel like it will be better than the first one?
Yeah, there's a good chance. I mean, the worst prediction you can make for this fight, because Shaheen was, guaranteeing that it's going to be a great fight, and I'm willing to make that guarantee too. We've seen crazier things. We've had fights in the past that we said for sure is going to end in a knockout, for sure is going to end up be a banger, and it doesn't happen. I'm very, very comfortable saying that this will be an entertaining fight. The worst thing you can say is that, it won't live up to the first one, and that's fine. The first fight was amazing. The first fight was probably, one of the 25 best fights ever. It's an amazing fight. Or it'll end in, we won't get a 5-round fight. We'll get or even a 4-round fight like last time. We'll get like a knockout in the first round or second round. And who can complain about that? It'll be a little bit deflating. I do think we want to see these two warriors, these two legends, go at least 3 rounds. I think you'd at least, want to see it go into the 4th again. But if it doesn't, how can you complain? How can you complain if Dustin Poirier knocks out Justin Gaethje or vice versa? Justin Gaethje just adds to his insane highlight reel with a knockout of Poirier, right? Like, I'm confident it'll go at least go past the second round. But if it doesn't, it's not the worst thing. Again, we'll just say it didn't live up to the first one. As far as how it'll play out, I do think it just logically will have to start off a little bit slower, just because, again, both guys older, wiser. I believe Justin Gaethje when he says, he's sort of learned to channel his emotions better, especially ahead of this fight. He knows how important that'll be, against someone that has beaten him before, that he did not lose his composure, but someone who figured him out. If you watch that first fight, that one at the Eddie Alvarez fight, both kind of had a similar rhythm where Alvarez and Poirier, they weathered the storm. They took all the data from the first couple of rounds, and then they eventually pulled away and finished Gaethje. So Gaethje's aware of that. He knows why he's lost the fights that he's lost in the past. So I think it'll be a little more methodical. I think we saw some of that in the Fiziev fight, which was a really good fight. But I think you did see a hint of like the kinder, gentler Justin Gaethje. But I also agree with Shaheen that can only last so long. At some point, someone makes you bleed your own blood, and then you just got to start going nuts. So I think it's going to be an amazing fight. I would be surprised if it lives up to the first one, but just because the first one was so good. Not because I think this fight would be bad, just because the first one was so good. But that doesn't mean that this won't still be one of the best fights of 2023. So I'm totally looking forward to it. And I think it'll be different in a good way.
It just means so much to him. It just means so much to both guys, right? Like, this is like we have so much experience with both these gentlemen at this point. And I think Justin, Mike, you brought this up at the beginning, but like Dustin is almost underrated as a lightweight, underrated historically, but also like underrated as being this guy willing to get into these incredible firefights and these exciting fights that we remember forever. Like, he has him littered up and down his resume. Like, this just means so much to both of these men, and both of them are still so durable at this stage in their career. Like, I don't know, man. This is as good as it gets, right? Like maybe a title's not on the line. Maybe this isn't the most important fight of all time, but goddamn, I can't wait to see just what happens when you lock these two guys in the cage together.
First of all, how dare you? There is a title on the line. It's the BMF title, in case he just sang about it the entire intro. But Shaheen, you talked about what this means to both guys. And we know where the winner is going. The winner is going to fight the winner of Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira 2. even no matter who wins, the winner of this fight is going to get that shot at the belt. And there's a very good chance that it will be the very last time that whoever wins this fight is going to fight for the undisputed title. I hate going this negative, but it's a fascinating part of the story and how this fight could actually play out, Shaheen. But where does the loser of this fight go? Like, the way we think this fight's going to go, we're going to praise both these guys up the wazoo. Holy cow, what a fight. Incredible performance. Guts from both guys. Both have the dog in them. Sorry, AK, I'll say it again. But there are big stakes here, not just for the winner, but if Gaethje or Poirier lose this fight, the door is almost closed on fighting for a belt now, because eventually these hungry up-and-comers are going to have to get their shots. Like, I don't know how much longer we can wait. Is this it? Like, are they putting their title hopes at 155, barring something insane, on the line here tomorrow night?
Yeah. They realistically are, right? Because you said, Mike, like, a sea change is coming at 155. This is inevitable at this point. We see it already approaching fast with the Gamrots and the Fizievs and the Sarukians and just all of the incredible talent that is coming up at 155 that is just sort of bubbling in that 20 to 15 to 10 range. These guys who are fighting each other and just can't really get their opportunity. That era is coming, and it's coming fast. And at a certain point, all of these guys are going to start getting phased out. We're watching it right now, as much as it pains me to say. We're watching it happen with Tony Ferguson. Like he is being fed to the wolves consistently to sort of prop up these other people. It's just the end of the line for some of these guys. Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, I wouldn't say it's the end of the line for them, but I would say they can both see it coming, and they both speak very with incredible self-awareness about that, right? Like, we have heard them all throughout the week, all throughout the lead up to a lot of their fights recently, just speak about the damage that they've taken, the knowledge that the window is closing, and that, both guys 34 years old, like, this is it. Especially a fight like this. Like, I would imagine the winner of this fight is not coming away scot free, right? Like, they're not coming away clean. They're taking more damage. Both these gentlemen have taken immense damage over the course of their career. The bottom drops out fast, man. Tony Ferguson was the best in the world on a 12-fight win streak until all of a sudden he wasn't, and he hasn't won since, and he hasn't even really looked competitive since. It's outside of brief flashes. Like, on these lower weight classes, we talk about it all the time. Things happen quickly, man. And at some point, that Reaper is coming for Dustin and Justin. So, like, this is it. This is realistically it. And again, what that's going to bring out of them is so exciting to me. But also, I will say, I don't know that I'll have a chance to mention this. So I just want to bring this aside in. I've mentioned this on a show before, but the symmetry between these two guys is dizzying with how bizarre it is at this point. Because here's Dustin Poirier's resume since 2008, when these guys won Fight of the Year against each other. 6-2 in the UFC, 4 finishes, 2 decisions, victory over Michael Chandler, interim belt that he captured over a man who had a 12-fight win streak, who had angel wings tattooed on his back, and the only losses over that span were submissions and title losses to Khabib Nurmagomedov and Charles Oliveira. You want to know Justin Gaethje's resume since 2018? 6-2 UFC record, 4 finishes, 2 decisions, victory over Michael Chandler, interim belt captured over a man with a 12-fight win streak and angel wings tattooed on his back. Only losses over that span, submissions and title losses to Khabib and Charles Oliveira. It's just ridiculous. We're living in a simulation. I cannot believe the roads that these two gentlemen have taken. It's just very bizarre, and it just makes this fight even better for me.
Yeah, Dustin Poirier said it best. They're on a collision course. There was just no way to avoid it. This fight just had to happen again. AK, do you feel like the stakes are dire here for both guys? If Poirier wins, we know where he's going. But if Gaethje loses, is he just out of the title picture? Same with Dustin if he loses. Do you feel like they're fighting for their title hopes maybe for the rest of their careers here?
Well, Casey brought this up earlier. He's on the weigh-in show, which we did today. He's a bit concerned that Gaethje might even consider retirement. He said he's kind of like given mixed signals on that after a recent fight. Which producer Casey, which fight? Well, he sent me a note here after UFC. What was this? His last fight, 286. After UFC 286, he mentioned something about his next fight could be the last one or something to that effect. But he's also said that laid out a plan of like. I might have 5 more fights in me. So he's kind of, gone in between. I personally don't think he would retire. I'm trying to think of a scenario where if he came out and had like a really disappointing performance, like not just lost a lopsided fight, but lost like a dull fight. I think being in an unexciting fight would really hurt him the most. If somehow he just, he wasn't able to pull the trigger, I think that's the time that he would go like, oh man, I got to step away. If he goes out in his shield, that's not going to discourage him. But if we somehow get the worst case scenario, which again Shaheen and I have said is essentially impossible, where it's kind of like an uneventful 5-round fight and Gaethje loses, then he might have to do some soul searching. So I personally don't think this kills his title hopes. I don't think this kills his chances as a contender. I think that window's open for at least another 2 years, even if he loses to Poirier on Saturday. There's a lot of good matchups for him. And with his name value, his history, what he brings to the octagon every time he steps in there, he's really only like 2 big wins away from ever fighting for that title again. Also, depending who has the title, so there's things in his way, but I don't think that Saturday is do or die for him or Poirier. I don't think it marks like, well, this is going to decide not just who the number one contender is, but who won't be a contender again. I'm not quite buying into that narrative. I think both guys have, if they choose to, have plenty of good fights ahead of them against top 5, top 10 guys. So stakes are high, but not, I don't think life or death high. Career life or death, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like career life or death because, like you mentioned, like either guy, they're a fun fights. Like either one of them against like Poirier Holloway again, sure. Gaethje Holloway, like incredible. Connor at some point, there's name. Like I'm sure both those guys would love to fight Oliveira again, like championship or not. Like there are big fights for them, and there are potential headlining opportunities and chances to still make money in the sport. But in terms of actually getting to an undisputed title, we're not even mentioned like the Volkanovskis eventually wanting to go back up there and challenge again. Like the road is just really long. And do these guys want to put themselves through the ringer to get back there after everything they've gone through, Gaethje especially? And Shaheen, Gaethje's such an interesting guy because like he said the words like, I got like 5 fights in me. But then if you ask him about it, he'll clarify and be like, no, I just said I have 5 more wars left in me. And then if you ask him like how many ticks on the boxes that he's actually checked off since the Michael Johnson fight, or the Poirier fight, he'll say 1. He'll say just the Charles Oliveira fight is checked off. Like he doesn't consider the Fiziev fight a war. He doesn't consider the Michael Chandler fight a war. Like this guy, I don't understand. Like how he's just like, nah, those aren't wars. But the 4 minutes I went with Charles Oliveira, that was a war, my friend. The mold of which this man is cut, it's unreal, Shaheen. It's just unreal.
I have forever been in amazement of it. I mean, I'm an Arizona guy. I've known Justin to a certain degree and spoken to him for the majority of his career, dating all the way back to when he was just a prospect in World Series of Fighting, and he was still doing this. And I remember in those early days, it was before he was in the UFC, asking him, like, just what does it feel like for you when you're in there? Like, what are you even like experiencing? Like, what are the feelings going through you? Like, what is your brain telling you when you're in these insane wars with Luis Palomino and 12,000 people sound like 100,000 people. And it's just this, you're basically making these buildings shake like an earthquake because of what you're doing in there. And he's always just been so, I don't know, like nonplussed about it. Like, it's just not a big deal. Like we said this thing with Robbie Lawler. I don't remember if this was on the Dam we did with them or the post show or whatever, but like they're in a different life. Justin Gaethje is wearing, like the skulls of his enemy on his head as a helmet and just leading people into battle with his battle axe and just marauding over Europe. Like he's just like, you're afraid to see him on the battlefield because some people are just wired differently. And both these guys are, to Dustin's credit as well. He falls under that category. But I mean, Justin Gaethje is top 2 most exciting fighter of all time. Like you put on the most exciting Mount Rushmore, it's Robbie Lawler, Justin Gaethje. Those 2 spots are secured, and then everyone else can go ahead and fight for the rest of those 2 spots. Like that's just who this guy is. I think every single one of his UFC fights, except for one, maybe, he's gotten some sort of post-fight bonus. Like it doesn't make sense to me. It's never made sense to me, but I certainly appreciate it. But for a guy like him, like he has a different barometer for these type of things, right? I think all of us would consider the Fiziev fight a war. That's going to be on our fight of the year list. That's probably one of the, if not a top 3 fight of the year right now. Like it's in the conversation. And for him to just dismiss that is like, that's just another fight. Like, that would be the most exciting fight of some people's careers. And for Justin Gaethje, it's like 12th, It's just who this guy is. Like, it's why we love him so much.
AK, over under 1.5 takedown attempts in this fight.
Takedown attempts, I'm gonna go under. I'd be surprised if we even saw like a instinct takedown, like a reactionary takedown. These two guys, I don't even necessarily think I'm not even gonna go and say like, oh, they have some unspoken agreement that they're gonna stand and bang. I just think that's how the fight's gonna play out. I don't think either guy is ever gonna see a need during the fight to take the other guy down. I think even if they get in trouble, they've both been in so many wars. They're both technically so sound. They know how to defend. They know how to slip out of trouble. They know how to punch their way out of trouble if they have to. I would be very. You said 1.5. Yeah, I gotta go under. I think I'll just say at 0. I don't think we see a takedown attempt. It'd be fun to watch. I always love watching Dustin Poirier grapple. I always love watching Justin Gaethje's takedown defense. Those things are entertaining in their own way. But I just don't foresee a scenario where it would have to happen. And certainly if this was a I have to bet, if I have $20 and I have to bet on it, I'm definitely going the under. So with respect to these guys and their ability to mix the martial arts, because Dustin Poirier certainly can. Justin Gaethje, hasn't really had to as much offensively, but defensively certainly has the acumen for it. This is going to be standing, banging, and just a beautiful, again, at times a beautiful striking battle, at times a beautiful brawl. And in the end, again, however long it goes, against me, a super memorable rematch with minimal mixing of the martial arts.
Shaheen, same question. And I'm also going to add one more to your pile. Will the altitude play any factor in this fight at all?
It has to, right? Like, I don't know how it doesn't, because it exists. The fact that it exists means it's going to add some sort of factor. Both these guys are cardio monsters, right? Like, we do not see Dustin Poirier fade. We do not see Justin Gaethje fade, at least later in this later stage of his career. Justin very much is a pace monster, just like Dustin. I think that's one element to this fight that I'm glad you brought up, because I don't think a lot of people are talking about it enough. Both these gentlemen have built careers, or at least it's sort of where they are now, on that fact that they're going to be pushing the pace. They're going to be in your face. They're just going to not give you an ounce of room to breathe, not a half second for you to collect your thoughts. Like, they're just going to be doing the damn thing to you the entire time. So if you're pushing a pace like that at the altitude that they will, I don't see how that doesn't play into the factors. But I would say also both these guys are incredibly smart with their preparation. Justin's someone who has trained for a long time with Trevor Whitman in Colorado, so he is he's not foreign to the idea of altitude. Dustin's incredibly intelligent with his preparation. I have to imagine he's factored that in to some degree. So I think it will play a factor, but I think that factor may just be that they sort of warm themselves into this, as we've said already, where the first round, maybe even the second round, is sort of a feeling out process before we get to the fireworks. And then the last, 2, 3, 4 rounds are sort of when things get going. I could see something like that, but I don't think either of these guys are going to just get gassed out and lose in that way. That's just not who they are. You might say they got that dog.
Will we get a takedown attempt in this fight, Shaheen?
Maybe in like a way that like Justin took down Fiziev, right? Where it's kind of like, I'm just going to do this to be funny, because it doesn't really matter at this point. Like, I could see that, where it's like the very end of the 4th round going into the 5th, and Justin's like, I'm just going to do this because I understand how to do it, just to throw a little wrench in the mix. But no, that's not who these guys are. We've seen it time and time again. Trevor Whitman's been calling for Justin to use his damn wrestling, of which he is very good at. He competed for a state championship here in Arizona in wrestling. Like, he knows how to do this. Trevor Whitman's been trying to get this guy to do this for his entire career. It's just, if it's not going to happen now, it's not going to happen ever. No, I would go under on that.
All right. Well, let's just get right to the picks here. Right now, according to our friends at DraftKings, Dustin Poirier, -145 favorite. The comeback on Justin Gaethje, +125. I think, AK, from a betting perspective, whoever the underdog is, I think you have to take a shot at him if you're going to bet straight on this fight. But we're not doing that here. Who do you got? Is it Dustin Poirier going 2-0 against Justin Gaethje, or does Gaethje get one back?
I used to have a pretty firm rule that I wouldn't pick against Justin Gaethje in any fight that I expected to stay on the feet, for an extended period of time. But that was before the Eddie Alvarez fight. That was before the first Dustin Poirier fight. So now that I've seen it and that I've seen that he can lose a stand-up battle, it's hard for me to shake that. Again, this is a second fight. It's really, I always say it's so hard to beat someone twice, like in MMA, like especially when the first fight was pretty competitive. So obviously I'm leaning towards Poirier. I just think he has the formula. I think he has the skill set to beat Justin Gaethje. Whenever we talk about how good Dustin is and how he beat Justin in the first fight, it sounds like we're like taking away from Justin's skills. Justin's a great technical fighter too. He's certainly known more for his slugfest, known more for that just one punch bomb knockout power he has as well. Also, the leg kicks, breaking people down. He has great technical striking ability, right? It's just I think Poirier just has the edge there. And unless you're assuming that Justin Gaethje has made some sort of leap well beyond Poirier, like I assume they've both gotten better since the first fight, obviously, then I have to go with the guy who won the first one, because I just don't think that Justin has surpassed him. It's really difficult. Like, this is the kind of guys I'd love to see them fight 10 times before I definitively said, like, oh, Poirier, owns Justin Gaethje, or Justin Gaethje owns Dustin Poirier. That's not how combat sports works, right? At best, you maybe get 4 fights with someone, and in MMA, that's super rare. It might happen in boxing. MMA, very, very uncommon, except for Moreno and Figueiredo. So this is probably the last time these two guys ever fight, and it's possible that this is more of a coin toss matchup than I'm giving it credit for. But again, if I have to make an educated guess, then I'm going with the guy who won the first fight, because I think he can do it the same way this time around. Excuse me. And like the previous fight, I think it goes past the 3rd round, and Poirier by TKO, round 4 or 5. I'll say round 4 again.
What a fight that sounds like it's going to be, AK. Shaheen, are you with him? Is it 2-0 Poirier, or just Justin Gaethje exacts some revenge and even the feud?
No, I mean, AK said this is almost a coin flip. I think this very much just is a coin flip, right? Like this, you could stage this fight 10 different times on 10 different nights, and I think it's 5-5 ultimately at the stage of where these guys are in their career. For me, it's tough to pick against Dustin. I mean, we've seen the type of fighters that defeat Justin in sort of this prime run that he's on. I would consider him still right now in his prime. It's not the type of fighter like Justin, right? Like it's someone who's more wrestling based, someone who's going to smother him, someone who's going to really negate a lot of his best strengths and not meet him at his best strengths. A guy like a Khabib or a Charles Oliveira. Whereas we've seen Justin sort of come out just slightly behind in these type of matchups. It's tough for me. I mean, having been in the arena, I picked Justin the first time around. I was pretty confident that Justin was going to get it done. Dustin Poirier proved me wrong. At this point, it's hard for me to pick against Dustin, considering exactly what AK said. Both these guys have grown, I would say, leaps and bounds over the last 5 years, but they are still essentially who they are. And I think once the chips are down, they will revert back to that. And I just think Dustin is so adept at winning these type of just brawls, right? These type of firefights of what we expect this to be. Like, he is so good at just digging down in himself and finding a different level that just like normal humans don't possess on a almost like a supernatural level. And we've seen him do it time and time again. I could just see this being a fight where Justin Gaethje comes out very motivated, very technical, wins maybe round 1 or 2. Dustin Poirier at some point swings the momentum back, maybe lands a big shot, gains the momentum, and we're going into round 5. 2-2, absolutely tied. And then Dustin Poirier just by a strict attrition essentially just takes out Justin Gaethje in the closing minutes, maybe even in the closing minute, and gets a round 5 TKO. And it's just like some epic encounter that we will remember forever. That's sort of where I'm going with it. So I do Dustin Poirier round 5 TKO.
It's funny, like the more I think about this fight and how it can play out, and I'll reiterate, I have no idea how it's going to play out, but the more I think about it, I feel like, Shaheen, you're like, I'm kind of with you. This to me, like, I feel like Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald gets more shine than Robbie Lawler, Carlos Condit, even though from a like a technical aspect, the Condit fight is the better fight. But there's just so many other intangibles that makes the Rory fight stand out. And I feel like the Rory fight is kind of going to be compared to the first fight that these two guys had, Poirier and Gaethje. And I feel like this one is going to be more Robbie Lawler, Carlos Condit, where it is super even heading into round 5. And then it's just absolute chaos in the 5th round. Attrition, nuts. I have a feeling that we're going to come on the post-fight show and there's going to be a bunch of fans out there who bet on Justin Gaethje, had a Justin Gaethje ticket, that are going to be pissed and screaming robbery and all of this. But we will calm you all down by talking about just how electric and fantastic the fight actually was. So with that said, I'm going Dustin Poirier in a split decision, crazy fight. 5th round will be round of the year. It'll be one of those types of things where we will look back on this fight as fond as the first one, but in a different kind of a way, if that makes sense. So sign me up for all of these options that myself and these two gentlemen put out there. But I think we're all on Dustin Poirier squeaking it out somehow in a very competitive, wild fight, Shaheen.
I'm surprised. I'm
calling
surprised.
a visit to Splitty City. He's a Splitty City. I'm on my way. Wow.
I am so surprised that all three of us are aligned on this. I kind of expected some dissension. Let me just throw this to you, gentlemen. If I give you an over-under of where this will end up on MMA Fighting's Fight of the Year list by the end of the year, 2.5. That's the over-under. So if you go under, it's top 2. Over, it's not. Gun to your head. Over under 2.5. What do you think?
It's going to be number 2.
Over. I think it'll be top. I think it won't be any higher. It's gonna have to be really good to pass again. Islam and Volkanovski, and I loved Moreno and Pantoja so much. So I if it passes that, I'll be blown away.
Yeah, I just think that one's there's a good. I think it's gonna be the number 2. I think it'll end at number 2. I think it'll beat Moreno Pantoja only because even if it's like equal to that fight, more people will remember this fight more than Moreno Pantoja. As unfair as it was, like that was part of one of the best cards we've ever seen. Volkanovski stole a lot of the headlines and all of that. I feel like Moreno Pantoja is not going to get the respect it probably deserves come year end, especially with 4 full months left to go. There's going to be other fights that come along that might bury that one back a little more. But I think with all the pageantry, the card that it's on, the build that this one had, the anticipation leading into tomorrow, I just feel like when we just think of Fight of the Year, we're going to think of Volkanovski Makhachev, and we're going to think of this fight just because of the pageantry surrounding it.
I agree with you. I think it'll be 2.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
But not a bad place to be. Not a bad place to be. There's just no and I'll say this again. I have no idea what's going to happen. Justin Gaethje could come out and just 50-45 Dustin Poirier. Nothing would surprise me. Poirier can knock Gaethje out in a minute. Gaethje can knock Poirier out in a minute. None of these things would be shocking. None of them. And that's what makes this fight so compelling. Much like the co-main event, Shaheen. Now,
Mike, before you move on, I'd say, you notice we barely mentioned the BMF belt while we were talking about the main event.
Because it's tangential. It doesn't matter. It
matters. We're not the only ones who don't care.
It matters to one people. Oh.
Guys, 48. I said just from 1 to 10. How much do you care about the BMF belt? And 5 or less, way ahead, 48%. So I think a lot of people are barely even remembering that this thing is on the line. They're just super excited to see these two fight again, which is really the whole point of this. And in a 5-round fight. So
it doesn't matter.
The BMF belt, nice. Hopefully, glad it's getting both guys more money, or I assume that's what it's doing. But otherwise, yeah, it's just a little trinket. People don't seem super jazzed about it, and why should they be?
Because the first time around, it was unique. It was a novelty the UFC had never done. It was something very organic that was created by Nate Diaz, like at a press conference. And the fact that the UFC actually went forward with it was like pretty surprising. And so I think at that point, it's like a centerpiece of that fight with Nate and Jorge. Like this one, it's like very obvious and in your face that the UFC just needed to slap a title on this for the what they have to deliver to ESPN, right? Like the contractual obligations that they are required for this. So, I mean, we all see this for what it is, but regardless, it's a great fight. Like you can't make me hate this fight.
Yeah. I mean, if you care about it, great. If you don't, then you're like everybody else. We barely even mentioned it in the 35 minutes we talked about this fight because it's so damn good. Jan Blachowicz, Alex Pereira going down in the co-main event, Shaheen. Ooh. We talked about, all three of us, I believe, were on the primer asking if this was the right fight to make, and kind of where this division is right now, I feel like it kind of had to be the fight to make. But Alex Pereira, Shaheen, still a terrifying individual, but he is living his best life this week. Didn't have to cut to 185. While all the fighters are cutting weight, Jan Blachowicz is probably sweating and running. We got Alex Pereira going live on Instagram, playing cards and smiling and laughing and having a great time. Like, this is just a different kind of Alex Pereira. And a lot of people noted that when they faced off after the press conference yesterday, like, Pereira was like way bigger than Jan Blachowicz in a lot of respects. Like, Jan was kind of looking up to Alex Pereira. So has this week changed your views on this fight, kind of seeing where Pereira's head is at, being kind of jovial, which is not an adjective we usually use to describe Alex Pereira, but he's a very jovial cat. Jan Blachowicz, just business as usual. Does this change the way you view this fight, just kind of seeing Pereira just smiling more than ever?
It scares me. It scares me. That man, like, he may be jovial, but that man is still like stone cold in a way that he is like the most terrifying human being that I've ever come across, or at least one of. He's on a very, very short list when it comes to that. And it's interesting that you mentioned the stare down, because I'm extremely curious to see the stare down at today's ceremonial weigh-ins, because I feel like the cowboy hat kind of threw some people off the scent for Jan. Like, he was wearing boots and a cowboy hat, and it almost gave him a little bit of height that was like false height. I'm really just to see just the stripped down version of what that stare down looks like and how much taller Pereira actually is, because, you know, they're listed 6'2", 6'4". Feels like it might be a bit more than a couple inches once we actually see it in that context, but I'm curious to see it. I am so intrigued by this fight in such I would say like a real, like, I just don't understand what we're about to see, because you could paint like so many different scenarios to me, and I would believe all of them. And I love the way that the UFC has sort of almost just adopted Jan Blachowicz as like this guy who's going to introduce these middleweights to light heavyweight. It's such a bizarre role for him. But he handles it so well. I mean, we saw him with Luke Rockhold. He sent Luke Rockhold to space with the knockout that he got on him a while back. The Izzy Adesanya thing, I was one of the only people picking Jan in that fight. It just felt like Izzy hadn't really tackled the size aspect of 205, or really like underestimated the size aspect of 205, right? Like, I think he weighed in at like 199 or 200 for that fight. Like, it was way lighter than what he really realistically should have been to fight someone Jan's size. And I know people keep going back to that fight when they're talking about this fight, because Izzy and Alex are so inextricably linked that it's just an obvious jump to make of like, you know, hey, Jan's the one welcoming both guys. But Alex is just such a naturally bigger dude than Izzy that, like, I don't know that a lot of the comparisons feel apt, because he's bigger, but also he's like rawer on an MMA scale, right? Like, he is such a raw product in MMA. The fact that he already has the UFC middleweight championship on his resume is just forever bizarre, considering that experience that he has in MMA. But he's just so big. Like, it is impossible to me to understand forever how this guy ever made 185 in any healthy way and was able to take any form of damage whatsoever and not just get knocked over by the slightest breeze because of the amount of weight that he was cutting. Like, he looks good at 205. He looks big. He looks like this was his proper size. And, you know, I was talking to, you know, our boy on staff, Eric Jackman, New York Rick, big kickboxing guy. I'm admittedly not a big kickboxing guy. So I was asking him, like, how was Alex looking at 205 compared to 185 when he was in Glory? Because he's obviously 2-division champion. And he says he got his best win of his kickboxing career at 205 over the best opponent that he faced. And so, like, we have seen this man succeed in combat sports at this weight class. It's just there's always the mystery with Jan, right? Because if you read between the lines, and I don't even know that you need to read between the lines, like, Jan's almost like kind of putting it out there. If you ask him, like, hey, are you going to try to stand with Alex, or are you going to do the Izzy route and really, you know, resort to some takedowns if it comes to it? It feels like Jan's kind of showing his hand a little bit of like, yeah, you know, like, I just need to win however I can win, and then I can get this title shot, and it'll probably be through wrestling. I don't know. Is that wrestling is he good, but ain't going to be able to get to that wrestling, or is Alex going to be able to just do something incredibly explosive in there and counteract that? Because that's the thing too, is Alex coming in here with so much more energy, so much more of just enjoying the week and feeling himself and not feeling so depleted. Like, I really am curious to see what this 205 version of Alex looks like in MMA without the weight cut. And also, Jan's 41, man. Like, not a lot of people realize how old this guy is. And, you know, it's 205 heavyweight. Those are the divisions where you can fight older. We saw Glover Teixeira win a title in his 40s. I don't know, man. Jan's 41. At some point that happens. I love everything about this fight. I'm so intrigued, and I have no idea where this is headed. Like, again, this could go so many different ways, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, AK. I mean, obviously moving up the weight class, Jan Blachowicz stylistically, as Shaheen mentioned at the top of this could be a really rough fight to watch if Blachowicz starts scoring takedowns early and getting top control and getting really confident with the being able to time takedowns and just using top control. Because like Jan said, if he wants to get a title shot, he's got to win this fight. But I do feel like he has to take a couple more chances and at least be somewhat exciting to at least have Dana go up to the press conference and be like, yeah, man, this dude's going to fight Yuri Prochazka for the title, and not, well, I don't make fights the night of the fight, so stop asking me those stupid, ridiculous questions. So there's that aspect, AK. And then there's something that people bring up a lot that doesn't really get talked about too much. It's been brought up on Heck of Morning recently. Alex Pereira just got colded real bad in April by Israel Adesanya. And this was not like a flash knockdown in a TKO. He was out like a light for, it seemed like an eternity before he got back to his feet. That was a nasty knockout. And he's coming back a little over 3 months later to make his 205 debut against a guy who, yeah, I believe his path, a lot of people feel that the path of victory is wrestling, but Jan Blachowicz has deaded a bunch of dudes too. So what's the thing that stands out most to you about this fight? Obviously the intrigue's there, but does the short turnaround concern you at all, considering what happened to Alex Pereira in his last fight? Or do you feel like, well, he's a pro. If he feels he can fight, then I'm not worried about it.
It concerns me, but I think it helps that he is coming back at a higher weight class. I do like that aspect of it. I think the idea of someone getting knocked out as viciously as he did and then coming back and then having to go back right into camp and cut weight and do all that definitely, to me, does not sound conducive to recovery. But if you're telling me that he took that knockout and now he's going a weight class up, we're not so worried about the dehydration and not so worried about these other. He's had a lot of time to focus on other things besides just keeping his weight on point. It makes me less concerned. I think you can never not be worried about a guy, accepting such a high level fight after a loss like that. But listen, Pereira and his team know better than we do what condition he's in, and like I said, guys were saying Glover was jazzed about the prospect of this matchup. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're not diagnosing the situation correctly. But it's worth mentioning. I'm a little more comfortable with it because it is at a higher weight class. As far as Jan having to mix the martial arts to really like take advantage of this fight, I do think going back to the Izzy fight, I don't know if he gets enough credit for how he handled himself in the feet in the Izzy fight. I think I will have to watch the fight again, but I've certainly watched it a couple times, and if I recall correctly, he actually did pretty well against Izzy in some of those. It wasn't like a fight where Izzy was dominating the feet and he only won by taking Izzy down. I think that's like the revisionist history. I know.
He won on the feet. Like he very much won.
Yeah, and he sealed it. He sealed it in the later rounds with takedowns. That's what people only seem to remember the grappling parts a lot, and they go like, oh yeah, if he wasn't bigger and if he didn't take Izzy down, he would have lost the fight. I'm like, that's not really how it played out. The difference here is Izzy does not have that death touch. Izzy is a great striker. Certainly a guy who knows how to finish a fight. He had the death touch against Pereira in that last fight for sure. But in general, I don't think most of us view Izzy as being a death touch guy. So I'm not saying Blachowicz could play around with him, but I'm saying there probably was less that fear of getting cracked by a 185er and getting put down with one shot. Against Pereira, man, I mean, that's the magic of this guy, right? Is you really get the feeling he could take Blachowicz out at any moment. Even if the fight's on the feet, he's tooling him. He's using his range beautifully. He's picking him apart. There would never not be a moment, as long as they were standing, that they're like, man, Pereira just nethis one good shot. He's going to take Jan's head off, and for good reason. He's proven it, right? I like that this is a 3-round fight. If this fight was made for a vacant title or something instead, and it was a 5-round fight, I'd be even more concerned for Jan, because I'd be thinking again, that's 10 more minutes that Alex Pereira has to land that kill shot if Jan Blachowicz can't finish him. So 3 rounds, I think, works well. Again, Jan can take an entire round with grappling if he has to, and then only needs one more round. Could be on the feet, could be wrestling. I'm just not super convinced that Alex Pereira can consistently stop Blachowicz if he decides to really emphasize the wrestling in this matchup. So, like you said, I'm really intrigued with this. I'm almost more intrigued by this fight than I am the main event. Not necessarily because I think it has the potential to be more entertaining. I don't know if that's going to happen, because if 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 Jan tries to get into a back and forth brawl with Alex Pereira, it just will not be good. But because again we haven't seen it before, because I do think whoever wins this fight is going to be the one half of the vacant title fight for the light heavyweight belt. And we don't have any sort of such guarantees with Poirier or Gaethje, even though it's likely. So I am almost more intrigued by the co-main, and even if it does, doesn't kind of play out in the most entertaining fashion.
The betting odds right now, I mean, it's a pick 'em, really. Alex Pereira minus 115, Jan Blachowicz minus 105. It's a freaking coin flip. Shaheen, who wins, Blachowicz or Pereira?
Oh boy. I mean, one, I said that Jan Blachowicz is 41. Correct myself. He's actually 40. So sorry, Jan. I gave you an extra year. My bad. Didn't mean to do that. Real quick, number 2. Do we mind, before I make my pick, if we just take a journey outside of the realm of reality and we just maybe amble over to Conspiracy Corner real quick? Is that okay?
I mean, why not?
All right. Let's just journey to Conspiracy Corner really quickly here. There is something very odd between Izzy and Alex, right? Like, I think we can all acknowledge this. Like, whatever that rivalry is a very unusual rivalry. It's not one that we see very commonly in MMA and combat sports, whatever. One man and two men having a rivalry like they did in kickboxing, and then for that to transcend over to a different sport, and one man to essentially chase the other into that sport, and then do it all over to him again. And then it comes back around, and we saw the last fight between Izzy and Alex, and it meets sort of that when that knockout happened, that Izzy knockout of Alex, it did not feel like it finished the story to any degree. It felt like that was the sort of the Empire Strikes Back of their saga, that it was setting up some epic final conclusion where now each man has gotten the better of the other. Combat sports is a very weird space throughout history, right? Like, I feel like there's a lot of mysticism and just bizarre energies at work within combat sports at times to lead people into certain places, to bring certain fights together, that sort of thing. Certain people are just drawn towards each other. And I think Alex and Izzy are just drawn towards each other in a way that is very unexplainable. And I just really haven't seen replicated in this era, at least. And to me, again, their story is not done. And we've already seen it set up, where the idea of Alex becoming the 205 champion and then that setting up this epic final chapter with Izzy, that's out there in the ether. That is now that Izzy has said that's the way that this next fight would happen, would be Alex getting that title and him going back up for some ultimate destiny type of stuff. I'm just throwing that out there, that if the MMA gods and the blood gods and all these people were conspiring to put together the best story possible with one of the craziest rivalries we've ever seen, it would be this way. It would be for Alex to come in here, Sean Strickland the hell out of Jan Blachowicz, and then just go in and win this title and set up probably the most incredible, anticipated, wildest trilogy match that we have ever seen between Izzy and Alex, two people who just cannot seem to get away from each other, even at the airport, even like no matter where they are, they're just going to keep running into each other. Their story is not done. And I just see that floating out there. I just see a world where we are careening towards something just incredible that we just cannot even fathom yet. And maybe this plays a part of it. Just throwing it out there. That is not based in any reality. That is just based, again, in the mysticism of the fight game. But it feels like if it was going to happen, it would happen in this setup. So
you're picking Alex Pereira.
Well, I say all that to say I'm picking Jan Blachowicz because I do think he's going to wrestle. I think he's been pretty clear. Like, if you can read between the lines of his interviews, that like he's gonna do whatever it takes to get that title shot. He sees it. He's 40. This is the last chance for him to sort of reclaim the belt. He was so close against Ankalaev. I think he'd be insane to want to go out there and fight Alex at one of the best kickboxers in the world in a kickboxing match, because, as AK said, Alex has the death touch in a way that few others do. I could see this being a very grinding fight, a very frustrating fight for people who are hoping for entertainment. If Izzy can out-wrestle Alex, which we've seen he can, then I'm certain that Jan Blachowicz can out-wrestle Alex. And I think he'd just be insane to not try to do that. So I see Jan Blachowicz winning a unanimous decision that maybe leaves us cold and a little frustrated. But, again, Conspiracy Corner is out there. I wouldn't be shocked if we see something crazy from Alex.
Tune in next week for Sean's Conspiracy Corner. AK, are you with Shaheen?
Yeah, I've got Jan grinding out a decision. Not even say grinding out. I think he'll have some offense in the ground too. I don't think it's just gonna be take him down and smother. I think we are going to have to see some ground defense from Pereira just to avoid getting finished, because I think Jan will get him down. I think he's going to land ground and pound. I don't know if he's going to risk position to go for submission attempts. I do think it'll be more control and strikes. And then there might be some moments where we feel like he's going to be able to put Pereira away, but Pereira, I think, is super tough. Again, he trains with Glover. I think he's going to have better defense than we think, just not enough to avoid being put in his back over and over again. So I should note, though, it is well documented, I am the worst person in the world at picking Jan Blachowicz fights. I think in his last 7, 8, 9, 10 fights, I picked maybe 1 or 2 correctly. I thought he'd beat Ankalaev. I was wrong. I mean, it was a draw, but still I was wrong. Rakic, I picked Rakic to beat him. Wrong. Glover Chair, I'm pretty sure I picked him to beat Glover. Wrong. I picked Izzy to beat him. Wrong. And so on and so forth. You can keep going down, name any of his recent fights. So I say Jan Blachowicz, which probably means, and that is my official pick. I'm not changing my pick, but I'm telling you guys out there, if you are bettors, you probably want to go based on that Pereira first round knockout or something, because I have no gauge for Jan Blachowicz fights. I keep picking him wrong, whether it's for him or against him. I never have a feel for it. My brain tells me grapple your way to a win, Jan, and that's what's going to happen. But these things always just play out so differently. And we're talking about a guy like Pereira who just can take you out at any moment. A knockout win for him wouldn't shock a single soul.
Look, my friends, I like to throw out my gut instincts from time to time. And sometimes I'm totally wrong, but sometimes I'm right. And if there's one thing, look, if the UFC does something not well, we're going to tell you about it. But if they do something very well, we're also going to tell you about it. The UFC matchmakers have match-made Alex Pereira to perfection. They have seen things that they just know how to book this guy and set up what they want. Now, do I think that will it eventually lead to an Adesanya trilogy at 205? Certainly. Is it going to happen within the next year? Probably not. Izzy's got things to do with DDP. Pereira would still have to beat Yuri or whoever he fights for the title. There is a part of me, and I don't think this is far-fetched. The UFC wants Alex Pereira to win this fight. 1,000%. They want 100%. To do Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka and eventually get to the place that Shaheen took us to. I know there's a lot of talk about year-end awards and fight of the years and things like that. And we're very confident that Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2 is going to make the fight of the year list. I am also quite confident that Alex Pereira versus Jan Blachowicz will be nowhere near this list. However, there is going to be another award that this fight is going to lead to. It is the knockout of the year. And it is going to come from the flying knee of Alex Pereira to Jan Blachowicz in round 2. It is going, I'm telling you, I've already envisioned this. GC and I are on the watch party. We're on set. We're watching the first round and we're feeling like, this is going to be 15 minutes of this. Jan gets a takedown, lands a couple leg kicks, gets a takedown, 4 minutes of control time. Second round starts. Blachowicz has a little success, gets a takedown, but then all of a sudden Alex Pereira gets up to his feet and we're like, all right, maybe we got something cooking. Blachowicz is going to get a little frustrated by that. And then he's going to shoot again, and he is going to run into just a ferocious knee from Alex Pereira right down the middle. Boom. Night, Jan. Alex Pereira wins in spectacular fashion and will be on the knockout of the year list at the end of the year. So I'm going Alex Pereira. I don't know if we're taking the direct journey to conspiracy corner, but I think Alex Pereira is going to win. I'm not confident, but that's what my gut's telling me, and I'm painting the picture that my gut is telling me. There you go. Alex Pereira gets it done.
My best friend. I love it.
Not often you hear people calling the knockout of the year beforehand. If this happens, Mike, I need some lottery numbers from you.
I don't know if it will be the knockout of the year, but I'm saying it's going to be in the top 5. We will be mentioning this fight on this list for sure. We mentioned Stephen Thompson, Michelle Pereira. We don't know what the hell is happening with that fight. We probably won't know until we get ceremonial weigh-ins. John Anik said at some point during the official weigh-ins that we might have to wait till the afternoon to figure out what the hell's going on with this fight. So stay tuned for that. Got a feel for Wonderboy Thompson. He's been in this position before. A lot of people thought he beat Darren Till, lost a pretty rotten decision, if we're being honest, and put him in a tough spot. Now, with his title hopes dangling by a thread, he might have to fight Michel Pereira, missed weight by 3 pounds, a much younger, very athletic Michel Pereira who didn't have to cut the full weight. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, stay tuned. MMAfighting.com will let you know. Main card opens with Michael Chiesa, Kevin Holland. Another fascinating fight. Michael Chiesa coming back after a long layoff. But Shaheen, I was going to mention what other fight intrigues you the most. So the one fight I did not mention on this main card, I feel like you're going to go to Tony Ferguson, 5-fight losing streak, taking on Bobby Green, as Tony does, Shaheen, as he typically does. No matter how many fights he's lost, Tony knows how to make fight week very interesting, and he knows how to turn attention upon himself. Dude's pulling out knives during his during his scrum at media day. Him and Bobby Green got after it at the presser, had a fiery face-off. Tony Ferguson is making us believe that not only will he win this fight, but he will go on a legendary run that will get him back to a title, Shaheen. Does it begin here? Does the resurgence, do you believe this, man? Does the resurgence of Tony Ferguson begin tomorrow night in Salt Lake City?
Did I just hear Mike Heck hop back on the Tony Ferguson bandwagon? Are you back with us, brother? There's only me left. I'm the only person left on the train. I am taking all comers. Tickets are free. You can get 2 for 1. I hope that like whenever this is over, you know, and maybe it's over soon. It's probably over soon. I hope that Tony Ferguson is still allowed to come to media days on random pay-per-view cards. Just like once every like 3 months, 4 months. Let him just come and do a media day scrum. Can be about whatever. We can just ask him about whatever. Just because that man is so interesting. Like he has the most fun media day scrums. We're talking about tracking bears. We're bringing out knives. None of this makes any sense. The bears saluted him on the way out. Like, what do we? I love it. I love this man so much. He's so one of a kind. He's so unique. Is this the start of a title run? No. I mean, we all know it's not. Like, we know what this story is. It pains me to say. It saddens me. Sort of where we've gotten to with Tony. I mean, there was a long stretch during this man's prime where he was at worst the second best lightweight in the world. 12 fights in a row in the hardest damn division of the entire sport, and he didn't even get a fucking title shot to any real degree. He got an interim title shot. He did not ever even get a real shot at the real belt, despite being one of the damn best in the world, in the best damn division in the world for as long as he was. And also, by the way, just an incredible action fighter throughout that entire time, an incredible interview throughout that entire time. Just this once in a lifetime combination of politics and just the Conor effect and just bad management during certain parts in his career, all of it just really, and also bad luck, right? The cord, the injuries, the Khabib stuff, all of it just coalesced to make this man one of, in my opinion, the most tragic figures of this era of mixed martial arts fighting, just in terms of how his career played out. I think if you play it out 10 different ways, this is probably one of the worst ways it could have played out, right? Like in what other world would this person not get at least one shot at the real lightweight title at any point during this incredible run that he had? It sucks. It sucks that we reached this point. He's not going to win 5 fights in a row and win the title. Like, that's just what it is. I'm glad he got his big shot with Nate Diaz, the big payday that fight entailed, being able to sort of negotiate last second and really get sort of the big payday that he kind of didn't get throughout his entire career. I will say, though, I mean, it feels as if ever there is a time for the MMA gods to give us one, right? Like we just saw in our last pay-per-view, Robbie Lawler walk away, greatest retirement in MMA history. Easily. It was a magical moment. We were on the post-fight show. All of us were like crying, talking about whatever, like not really crying, but like it was a really emotional night. It was a really emotional scene for what happened with Robbie Lawler. If ever there was a time for that to be duplicated, right? Like, can we just look back on July of 2023 as just one of the 1 month out of forever where the MMA gods just finally gave us what we deserve, gave us the legend send-offs that we deserve, rather than Shogun just getting sparked out by a man that no one's going to remember 10 years from now who dances over his fallen body. Like, can we get a Tony Ferguson moment? Can we get a throwback to Blades and Shades, just doing something crazy, getting some sort of crazy result, a crazy knockout, crazy Darce choke, whatever on Bobby Green, cutting a cool promo and then walking away in the cage and having a very cool retirement rather than continuing this? I doubt we can. I think if Tony wins, he's probably going to just try to keep chasing this dream. In my mind, though, it would be really cool if that's the way all this ended. But, you know, there's a weird sense of, like, I'm sure you guys feel it too, like looming dread over Tony fights now, right? Like, am I alone in that? It feels like almost like you're expecting the worst, hoping for the best, but also like just don't get hurt much more, man. Like we've seen him take so much damage at this point.
Again,
Shaheen, I'm not hoping for the best anymore. That's the problem. I've given up hope. I've given up hope. Real Prince of Positivity talk here, by the way.
You're still not hoping for the best? You've given up. Come on, man.
I only expect the worst now. I don't know where it was. I was trying to figure it out with Casey earlier today. I think it was after. I want to say it was after the Derrick fight because I think I picked him to beat Derrick. So I think it was after that fight that I was like, I just can't pick this guy anymore. I'm not gonna pick this guy to win fights anymore. Not that we don't see flashes of his former self. Not that he's still a tough guy. I mean, listen, he went the distance with Oliveira, went the distance with Derrick. Didn't really get to do much offensively in either of those fights. But at least he didn't get finished. And then wins a round from Chandler. Like I get it. I see the flashes. I know why I understand why there's still hope. But I'm also seeing I can't overlook the results. And even though he's losing to top guys, which is one of the reasons why I had him contentiously kind of ranked in my top 15 for so long, I had to accept, you guys kind of talked to me this, that there's still losses. There's still something there that's missing, that's preventing him from winning fights. I love this matchup. I think the Bobby Green matchup is amazing. It's so smart. Not even just because I'm picking him to beat Bobby Green or anything, but because I expect it to be an entertaining fight. Those flashes that I mentioned, I think you'll see a lot of those. Win or lose, you'll see a lot of those against Bobby Green. And I think if we lose to Bobby Green, as long as he's not knocked out cold, which is possible, I think if we lose to Bobby Green, it'll still be palatable to us. I think we'll still be like, okay, I'm not like and when I say we, I'm talking about general people, not necessarily myself, because I'm ready for Tony to retire at any moment, quite frankly, for his own health, for his legacy. If you care about that, if you care about fighters, sticking around too long. Both those reasons are good reasons why I'm kind of okay with not seeing Tony Ferguson fight anymore. I know we love his fight weeks. I know we love, again, still those flashes of the old El Kukui. It's just further and farther between these days. And again, the end result is so unappealing. So I love the matchup. I think it was the right way to go. I can't pick him to win. And two, if he loses again on Saturday, I am really curious how much longer he's going to want to go on. So Prince of Positivity here, guys. This is how I feel about the latest Tony Ferguson fight. I don't know what to tell you. I probably don't ask me about Tony Ferguson fights anymore.
This is a winnable fight for Tony. He can win.
On paper, it totally is. It totally is.
What is a winnable fight for him anymore? Because I thought Nate Diaz was a winnable fight for him.
So I thought that was me too. I thought that was a winnable fight as well.
He didn't look good in it.
I thought Beneil Dariush was a winnable fight. So this is why I can't go there anymore. I just cannot go there with Tony anymore.
This is honestly, like, if this fight was in New York or Las Vegas or Anaheim, I would pick Bobby Green pretty handily. This is a fight where I actually think the altitude could help Tony Ferguson, because that dude, if there's one thing that this man hasn't lost, it's his ability to just go and go and go. So he may not be the best fighter in the world, but if Tony comes out and puts on a pace like real quick and at least is somewhat competitive with Bobby Green, the longer this fight goes, there's a really good chance this favors Tony Ferguson, especially down the stretch, because Tony's a cardio machine. I'm not saying Bobby Green's just going to gas, but there's a chance. And let's be clear. And I saw Aaron Brunsetter talk about this in a video that he posted. Scoring Bobby Green fights is not easy. We've seen a lot of splitties in Bobby Green fights, whether we felt like, oh, Bobby won 30-27 or Bobby won 29-28. Turns out to be a splitty on the other end. And the judges seem to see things in Bobby Green fights or miss things that we see watching it on the broadcast. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that Tony can drag this on and turn this into just a cardio-based, crazy-ass fight. I don't know if I'm going to be confident enough to pick him, but there is a path to victory for Tony Ferguson. If we get the wild, high-paced Tony Ferguson, he doesn't have to be a great fighter. He just needs to last longer than Bobby Green. And there's a chance that happens in this fight, especially with altitude, which will affect most of these fights on this card. So we'll see what happens there. Before we go to the peeps, we have a new mythical creature, Shaheen Al-Shatti. We have a new mythical fighter, a fighter who now has a new nickname, the six-pack beast, Derrick Lewis. The dude promised a six-pack, and geez, he gave us one. Dude shows up at the weigh-ins looking fit. Dude's got a six-pack. He's in shape. This dude was passing out before he stepped on the scale to fight Sergey Spivak. Thought he died. And then he shows up and he fulfills his promise. We all thought he was talking out of his ass. There's no way he's going to show up at 6. Maybe he'll paint them on or something. Dude looks good. This is the best we've ever seen Derrick Lewis look, Shaheen. Do you feel he's another guy who needs a win really bad on this one? And if he loses to Marcus Rosario de Lima, this will be by far the worst loss of his career. Do you have a different kind of confidence in Derrick Lewis after seeing what he looked like on the scale today?
I mean, he's only 38 years old, Mike. Heck, he's in the prime of his heavyweight career, baby. He's making his title run. No, I don't know. I mean, I hope this isn't too little too late, right? Because that was the thing we've always been saying with Derrick from jump, of just like if he could sort of get in a little better shape, maybe he would be an actual title like competitor. Like he would be a threat to win that title. I hope he just didn't do it too late. I do think this is a fight he can win, though. I mean, the old Derrick Lewis would win this fight 100% of the time. The current version of Derrick Lewis, I still feel like wins this fight 7 out of 10. Like look at that. Casey,
look
clutch.
At this dude.
It's good, man. He looks good.
Light heavyweight Derrick Lewis, maybe in the future. Look at this guy.
There was a video circulating on Twitter this past, or X. I guess we have to call it X now.
You don't have to do that. I call
so
I call Twitter. I'll call Twitter
so
all I want.
Take that,
Elon. Still Twitter. It's still Twitter.com. It's still Twitter.com. So what's he going to do about it?
AK versus Elon. Give the people the fight they really deserve.
10-6 AK.
AK's got that dog in him. No, there's a video circulated on Twitter. Oh, I know what Case is about to do. There's a video circulated on Twitter this week of like Derrick Lewis's only submission win, which if you've ever seen this, it's like an incredibly svelte, like ripped up, skinny Derrick Lewis. Like, where was that? Like, that's almost like what this reminds me of. But I don't know, man. I think Derrick is going to pull this out. I don't think he's a threat at this point where the heavyweight division has gotten to, right? With guys like Tom Aspinall, Pavlovich, Jailton Almeida, John Jones. Like, this is a heavyweight division that is not your father's heavyweight division. Like, these are real, all around, just athletic beasts out here. I don't think that Derrick's able to compete with that at this point in his career. But I do think this is a little maybe a renaissance, a little vintage moment that we can get from him. It's a very advantageous style matchup. And if I can get one more Derrick Lewis knockout and one more Derrick Lewis, I'm just going to kind of stand up because I'm sick of being on the bottom moment out of Saturday. It's a great night.
Yep. Can't wait to see how it looks. I think Derrick Lewis is
probably. Do it.
You're not going to pick Derrick Lewis?
I'm not sold on the abs. I'm not sold on the abs. The one thing I do like is, Shaheen's right, is this is not a spring chicken heavyweight they're throwing at him. I think they're almost the same age. I think it's like a couple of months or something separating them. So Pizzaz's been around for a long time. So that does give me some hope. That does give me some. And yeah, on paper, like if this matchup had been made 6 months ago, or maybe even before the Spivak fight, you know what? Let's say if it was just a 2-fight losing streak, Derrick Lewis, I probably would very comfortably be picking Derrick Lewis to win it. But I just didn't like what I saw in the Spivak fight. Like that was a classic. If people can see my prediction for that fight, that was a classic. I thought we would have the Derrick Lewis just stand up and not get submitted thing, but he got taken out in a round. And Spivak's good. It's not taking away from Spivak. Spivak is a legitimate like top 15 heavyweight. He is good, but now I'm at the same place with Derrick Lewis that I am with Tony Ferguson, where I'm like, I've lost so much faith, so much confidence. I really am. I know it's terrible. I'm a terrible person. I'm a terrible person. So I can't pick any of these guys. Oh, I'm not looking at this. All right. Well, I'm okay. I'm looking now. Because I'm reading things on my screen.
You thought we were laughing at him, not
I'm in. No, yes. I'm in. This is okay. This is someone has me in them. This is okay. I would love to see someone say they've got the AK in them. Then I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. That's an original thing to say. But look at where is he? Oh, he's this guy's a little cutie. I don't know if I'm this guy. This guy's a little cutie.
All right, we are off. We are getting off the rails here in a huge way.
The Prince of negativity over there may not be
I don't know what's going on.
Like Izzy manifested DDP. I am manifesting vintage performances from El Kukui and the Black Beast. We got
wow. Pizzal by knockout.
Okay. Let's bring Casey in. We'll take a couple of questions. We will have the People's Pre-Fight Show tomorrow, so we'll take a whole bunch more. But we've been going for well over an hour here, so we'll take a couple. Let's throw out a couple.
All right.
And we'll get on out of here. Thoughts on Jan's cowboy hat? Yeah, we kind of talked about that. He tapped into his inner Brock Lesnar WWE.
What a great gimmick! Like, what a great, refreshing gimmick change. Like, this is combat sports. This is sports entertainment. You've got to refresh your character every now and then. And I would not have predicted Jan Cowboy Blachowicz. I don't know why. It's just not an aesthetic I would have thought he would have taken on. And I'm seeing it this week, and I'm like, it just kind of fits. It's just kind of a nice. It looks real good. It's just kind of a nice look for him. So kudos, like big thoughts on Jan's. 10 out of 10. I love Cowboy Blachowicz.
Are there any up and coming Austins coming for the throne?
I was prepared for this question, guys.
Oh,
we've got Justin Tafa. What do you guys think about Justin Tafa?
Yeah,
heavyweight. Okay. Dustin Jacoby, not really up and coming, a veteran, obviously, but a guy who's doing good things in the UFC now. No, okay. Dustin Stoltzfus. I don't think he's going to be he might not be in the UFC anymore. He's 1-4 in the UFC so far. And Austin Lingo, if you count Austin, does that fit in there? Is there?
Austin's fit.
Austin Hubbard on
Austin
Ultimate Fighter 31. Everyone's talking about it. Just won a banger of a fight on Ultimate Fighter. Just made to the finals. So Austin Hubbard gonna come back, but I feel like I'm sorry. That was those UFC names. I apologize to other promotions.
Joshua, after Justin versus Dustin and Errol versus Bud, what fight is more likely to end with the people rioting in the streets?
What would cause a riot for either, I guess? To me, only a bad decision would cause a riot, right?
So Errol versus Bud then, probably.
It's the boxing fight for sure.
Yeah.
It's the boxing fight for sure. Will there be some backlash of like the way I see Justin Dustin going down, where it's like a really close split decision and a lot of people feel like Justin won? Yeah, but I don't think we'll get rioting in the streets. I think it'll be more like, holy shit, what a fight, more than maybe Justin got robbed. But yeah, if Errol versus Bud goes, like if Errol, everyone's like, 8-4 Errol, and then Bud wins the decision. Yeah, it's definitely that. It's definitely
because the stakes are just much more immense, right? Like that's for number one pound for pound the whole damn sport. We just saw that with Alex and Islam and the controversial decision from there. Like when you have a controversial decision in a fight of that magnitude, like especially boxing,
a fight that's been built up for years too.
Yeah. Did I miss the low-key banger? All right, I knew someone was going to ask it, so I didn't ask it because we had already gone so far. What's the low-key banger of UFC 291, Shaheen?
Oh, man. I mean, it's hard for me to not default to the Bonfim-Giles fight that sort of headlines the prelim card. I think that's just a really fun action fight. Although, there's been a lot of crapping on the Jake Matthews train that a few of us may have jumped on at various points in our lives on this MMA fighting YouTube channel and podcast network. And I do not appreciate it because there was a Jake Matthews moment and we were all part of it. So I'm picking the Jake Matthews fight. I still believe. Man, still like 26? How young is that dude? It's crazy how young he is. Yeah, he's 28.
I think he's 28. Yeah, that's crazy. AK?
I love the Matthew Semelsberger Uros Medic fight. When this fight was put together, I was super excited about it. Medic, I don't think ever goes to a decision. Yeah, he's not gone to a decision in his brief career. And Semelsberger has gone to a few decisions, but he has the potential for fast knockouts. So I see that one going somewhere in between. I think it'll be a banger for one round, and then someone puts the other guy away in the second round. Very, very excited for that matchup. And definitely way under the radar.
The flyweight fight's going to be fun. Go ahead, Casey. I think I already know what you're going to pick.
I'm actually going Matthews Flowers too, mostly because me and AK decided that Darius Flowers sounds like an NXT wrestler.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, AI generated name.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, look, that fight is going to be insane because Darius Flowers is like we use get or get got. Darius Flowers is maybe the king of get or get got. Like he just goes out and it's just one speed. I'm going to get you out of there as fast as I can. And if I can't get you out of there, I'm probably getting finished in the second round. And he's coming in on short notice with a lot to prove. So yeah, I think either Darius is going to knock Jake Matthews out in an insane moment, like 2 minutes into the fight, or Jake's going to like submit him late in the first or early second. But that'll be a wild, like 4 to 6 minutes of fighting. But I think the flyweight fight's gonna be really good. Well, the catchweight fight, since Salvador missed weight. So, but Vergara is super fun. That dude knows how to weather a storm, and Salvador is that dude just finishes fights like crazy. So that'll be fun. There's a lot of fun ones from a bet. Like, I'm glad I don't bet on MMA because outside of like just picking some dogs at some value, there's just not a lot of like confident picks here. Honestly, like even Semmelsberger, Uros Medic, like. You feel like the way Semmelsberger's looked and Medic taking on short notice, like Medic is really good. Like he's a really good technical striker and could give Semmelsberger some problems. So like there's a lot of, I kind of feel for the bettors out there. You're going to be sweating a lot. Like GC is going to be a sweaty mess during the watch party, one would assume. So yeah.
You should have a heart rate monitor on GC
that's a great idea
during the watch party.
That's a great idea. If we could figure out how to work that.
Just quickly, I want to say a lot of people asking, is Michel Pereira and Wonderboy still on? We don't know. There's been no update, and we've heard it's going to probably take a while to figure out. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't learn until the ceremonial weigh-ins later tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't come out till then.
Yeah. Craziness, man. And I get where Wonderboy's coming from.
It's a mess.
Yeah,
I get where Wonderboy's coming from.
At 40 years old for Wonderboy, if he takes a bad loss or even a loss, any loss actually, I mean, what's next?
He's still in play. He's honestly still in play for the belt right now, despite the bad losses to Bilal and Gilbert. Like he's not like if he wins this fight, he's not getting a title shot. But I mean, he's literally on his last leg of ever getting back there. Like he can't lose again. Like he's in Ric Flair before Shawn Michaels said, "I'm sorry, I love you," and kicked him in the face territory. Like he loses again, he's not fighting for a title. So he's got to be careful. He's got to be careful. He's already been down this route before. It's tough, man. It's a tough spot.
Another
Is he the most youthful 40-year-old, both looks and personality-wise, you've ever seen? Because, I mean, other than Casey, who obviously is the answer here, like, I don't even know who else I would throw in there. Like the fact that Wonderboy's 40 is bizarre to me.
Oddly enough, Wonderboy was born a day before me.
There we go.
Same year?
One whole day. Yeah, one whole day. He's February 11th, 83. I'm February 12th, 83.
Damn.
Dang, I'm sorry I didn't throw you in the mix, Mike. I assume you're just 32, 33 years old.
Well, you wouldn't know. He doesn't look a day over 29.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
You wouldn't have guessed that he's 40.
Except for this. I lost that.
I was bald at 22. I can't count that.
Must-winish fight for Michael Chiesa against Kevin Holland.
No.
Yeah. You don't think so?
It'd be a 3-fight losing streak.
Nah. That's all right.
Mike's that's all right. Mike's not like contending for titles if he loses this fight, man. Like that's the reality of it.
Well, I mean, what does it means must win as far as just talking about I thought it's like a career thing. Like, is he gonna?
They're not gonna cut him.
No,
they won't cut him if he loses.
I don't think he's gonna retire or anything either. I don't think it's a must win.
Is he out of if he loses, are we going to consider Michael Chiesa just a good welterweight, or right now he's? I don't know where do we consider Michael Chiesa right now? Anyway, I'm not even sure, to be honest.
Well, he wouldn't be
ranked. He's missed so much time.
Yeah, he wouldn't be ranked in ours. Yeah, because he's still missed time.
Yeah, he's already out of our rankings for inactivity. Like,
but he would be top 15, I think, if you were eligible. Because I mean, Neil Magny.
Say he wins big tomorrow. He wins big. He dominates Kevin Holland, submits him in the second round.
Yeah.
Like, where would you put? Like, would you think Chiesa's got a title run in him of a big win tomorrow?
I like Michael Chiesa so much. I just don't think I don't think he ever makes it to a title fight. Maybe that's why I'm not so bullish on the whole do or die thing. Like I think even if he wins, I don't think it's like it puts him that much closer. It keeps it alive, obviously, but I don't think it's like, oh man, Michael Chiesa is definitely gonna get on the way to a title shot with a win. I'm like, I don't know if I see that
because he did the big gatekeeper win. You know, he beat Neil Magny.
So
that means you're a top 10 guy if you beat Neil Magny. That
was like almost 3 years ago.
It's he becomes.
I know. It's a mystery. I don't really know. I'm kind of asking.
If Magny, if we talked about the Dalton line last week because we talked about that Nakamura. If Neil Magny is the welterweight emphasis or the welterweight layer for the Dalton line, Michael Chiesa is like 1B. So it's either with these up and coming welterweights, like if he loses, it's either, all right, this guy's on a 6-fight winning streak. Let's throw him in there with Neil Magny. Oh, we can't. Neil's fighting this dude. All right, we'll throw him in there with Chiesa then. Like they're kind of intertwined in that respect. Like that's what Chiesa sort of becomes. Chiesa's still a name. He's got some good wins. He's main evented cards. That dude he submitted Beneil Dariush. Like people forget that. That was insane. That was insane. And especially learning what Chiesa was going through before he was getting out to the fight had things could have got real messy in the octagon with some stomach issues he was having heading into that fight. Like he's talked about it. Dude going out there submitting Beneil Dariush is no joke. Like Chiesa still got some legs to him. Seems like he's in a good head place. That dude's future is so bright once his fighting career is over.
Great broadcaster. But
he's a great analyst. He's so good. This is to be honest, I don't think it's like must win. There's still a place in this roster for Michael Chiesa, even if he loses.
I think honestly, whether he wins or loses, his next fight is probably like in the Jack Della Maddalena range or like an Ian Gary. I know Gary's already matched up, but like he's probably getting one of those up and comers, right? That's sort of their test.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like the winner of this fight's going to get JDM. If Kevin Holland wins, they're definitely going to do that fight.
Yeah.
Because that's all like Kevin just kept talking about him at media day, and they almost like Kevin wanted that fight when Sean Brady fell out and they went with Josiah Harrell. Like, yeah, that's kind of, I feel like the winner of this fight gets the JDM treatment. Besides Habib, what's the greatest Tony fight we never saw, Shaheen? I feel like you're the perfect.
It's Conor. It should have been Conor. He had the interim title when Conor had the real title. They were just in the same management, and the whole thing, Conor would have never come back to fight him. But like the way you look at the way those two dudes fought, especially back then when that would have happened, all action all the time, similar to a Poirier, similar to a Gaethje, like that would have just been utter chaos. And I would have just loved to see the press conference with Tony and Conor, both still in their primes, maybe Conor past prime, but Tony still in his prime. That we would still be quoting that. It's such a shame the way that this man's like best years were handled. It really is.
My best friend, I'm about to do something bad here. I'm about to.
You're gonna lie.
I'm about to do something. I got a mischievous look on my face. I'm about to do something bad.
What are you gonna do?
Well, first of all, I shouldn't even answer it with this because this could still happen and should. Paddy Pimblett. Where is Tony Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett? This is the fight to make. This was the fight to make. It's still out, and it could still happen. Even win or lose Tony Ferguson, he can still fight Paddy Pimblett. This is the way to go. It's a name opponent for Paddy. I think it's a winnable fight for Paddy. It's certainly a winnable fight for Tony Ferguson. So, I shouldn't even, again, it's not in the realm of never because both these guys are still active. They're both in the UFC roster. Tony says he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, fingers crossed, I still get one of my favorite on to the next one picks that I've ever made. People are talking about it because we made them talk about it, but still counts.
Connor's a good one. Pimblett's a terrible one.
What Woodley? Woodley, welterweight.
Dustin Poirier?
No, Tony wasn't a
Dustin Poirier would be a good one.
But a good one.
There was a period though where I think Tony was talking about moving. We thought Tony should move up because
he was going to fight Li Jingliang.
Yeah, oh, that's right. That was a thing too. Yeah, I would. That's why I always thought him and Woodley would have been interesting. But obviously Woodley's doing his own thing now. But so I would throw that out there. I think that'd been fun to see.
You guys were talking a lot about Tony, and his downfall and everything, and all that. Is it almost a worse thing for Tony's health if he wins tomorrow night? Because that means his next fight.
I thought about this a lot.
Against,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I've thought about this a lot. As much as, I'm sorry, I think my internet's messing up.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
I've thought about this a lot just because I think the way that Tony speaks, he's always been someone with such like everyone has self-belief in themselves, right? In this game, you have to, but like some people are pretty exceptional with the way that their self-belief sort of drives them, and like Tony's one of those guys, like who he'll be 50 years old and think he could still make a title run. Like that's just who he is. I think you're right. Like I would love for there to be a world where he does the Robbie Lawler on Saturday and just wants to go out on a win, gets something crazy, goes out, it's an emotional moment for everybody, and we can move on. But I think there's a 90% chance that if he wins, he's going to think that, hey, this is my moment to do a Michael Bisping thing. It's not over yet. So I think in the long run, you're probably right.
I also feel like the UFC, like, would they still put Tony in a position to put another name over? Sure. But I think the good news is a lot of those names that really scare the hell out of us are well beyond where Tony is right now. And while like a Grant Dawson type would get a nice rub from beating a guy like Tony Ferguson, it doesn't hold the same weight as it might have 2 years ago. So I kind of feel like the matchmaking here is sort of indicative of what we're going to get from Tony moving forward. Maybe we get Jim Miller next, or Tony Ferguson, Joe Lozon down the road, or like something like that. Like these, I feel like that's the territory we're going. And if Tony, like, you know, beats a Jim Miller at UFC 300 and then like fights a Joe Lozon and wins that fight, maybe we're going to have to sort of protect him from himself. But I still think the UFC sees value in Tony Ferguson, but not to the respect of like, we got to use his name to bolster up this guy on the come up who is
Really?
just absolutely annihilating people. Like, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. I just don't think it's going to happen. Like, I don't think they're going to throw him in there with like Grant Dawson next. I don't think they're going to throw him in there with like Rafael Fiziev next if he wins a decision against Bobby Green. Could they do Jim Miller? I mean, that is a perfect fight for Jim Miller at UFC 300. Him and Tony Ferguson. Like, just do that. Or him and Joe Lozon. Like, there's still juice left for the UFC to squeeze out of Tony Ferguson. But I think the UFC kind of sees, like, what's the point? Like, is anyone going to be like, wow, Tony Ferguson's fighting Arman Sarukian next? No, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing that? You know what I mean? But there are still fights for him. Yeah.
I hope you're right. I don't think they would throw him in against an Arman under any circumstances, but I could very much see a smaller scale world of that where like Tony wins and then gets like a Matt Frivola or a Jalen Turner or a Grant Dawson or something.
God,
that feels. That's what I'm saying. Like that feels very within reach of what we tend to get.
I can see Jalen Turner Ferguson if he wins. I could see.
We could go on the vet tour with Tony right now. Like there's Matt Brown, Jim Miller. Lozon still wants to do the damn thing. Like Clay.
Hopefully they learn to listen. Hopefully they learn to listen from Robbie. Right? Like this is what people don't want to see that. Like people want to see their legends get treated well rather than just blasted over and over again. So I mean, hopefully they learned a lesson from it. But I don't know. Yeah. Too much time in this sport teaches you not to expect good things.
Tony, yeah, we'll see Tony in Abu Dhabi fighting Ihor Potieria in a middleweight fight. This next one.
Shout out to Liam Devine in the comments. How was Tony versus Miller or Lozon a great fight, but Tony versus Paddy Pimblett isn't? Thank you, Liam. Thank you. Asking the hard questions. Asking the hard questions. No response.
I don't mind the Paddy fight, honestly.
I know, because you're enlightened.
I will say that the more time has passed and where these two gentlemen are right now, I hate it less.
Yes.
I hate it less.
I'll take it.
That is like, honestly, if there is an up and comer in this division that they would feed Ferguson to, it's probably Paddy. It's not Dawson or Sarukian or Fiziev. It's probably Paddy.
Mm-hmm. You're damn right it is, my best friend. You're damn right it is.
I'm very upset with what AK has done on this show today. I'm just saying.
But
if this fight ever gets booked, I don't know how I'm going to react in real life. I don't know how I'm going to react.
You win Otno. There's no.
We'll never do it.
There's no more Otno points to give. You would get them all.
There you go. Vlad in the comments with the right idea. Let's just hold out for Tony versus Derrick Lewis, and we can all.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Grappling match. Let's go.
Ooh, why not? That'd be awesome.
That would be incredible. That'd be incredible. All right. Do we have anything else? I think we're good.
This is the longest preview show ever.
We talked for like 50 minutes about the main event, and it was worth every second.
Yeah, that's a good card.
All right. We'll be back. Casey and I will be back 5:45 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And then you can ask all the questions. That's all we're going to do for 45 minutes. All the questions. So stay tuned for that. Watch party tomorrow, 9:45 p.m. Eastern. Myself, GC. Shaheen's going to be there for the Blachowicz Alex Pereira fight. We might have a little surprise for the main event. Still trying to finalize. Might happen. If not, you get New York Rick, and that's still a great surprise too. And then AK and I on to the next one Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll post-fight show. Jose's on site. Just stay with us. We'll tell you everything that's going on. Follow along on this adventure of UFC 291. Thank you all very much for AK, for Casey, for Shaheen Al-Shatti. I am Mike Heck. Thank you for watching. Get some sleep, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
One more sleep, baby.
Good boy. That's a good boy.
Love y'all.